It's been 2 months since our last group get together, and not all of you were here. Well, there. Um, so I was trying to think back, what had we done since then? You know, where all have we been? I had individual meetings with each of you. Just got together with you and kind of talked about, just sort of shot the wind for a while. Like, yeah, well, this is a lot of strange stuff. What do you think about this? And you're all like, yeah, that's good, yeah. What are you gonna do with it? I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, it's been very interesting though, because I feel that's what was supposed to happen, was just a time of speculation, not being sure of things, and just sort of wandering around and, I don't know, let's just go here and see what happens. Maybe this could be the case, not sure, I don't really want to put my foot down there yet. But that made it so that each conversation that I had was very organic, and it really flowed, it was just natural. And I got to hear a unique perspective from everybody. I wasn't shoving something down your throat. It was like, I'm actually hearing what your genuine thoughts are, rather than, I have this whole thing prepared and ready and I want you to fit into my box, right? So that was really nice. And then we had our first meeting together, and that was sort of in the same nature, sort of like thrown together. I don't think I'm really supposed to prepare a lot for this, so we're just gonna wing it and see what happens. And it was fine, It was good to solidify something, right? It was like, okay, this is going to happen. We're not just talking a bunch of ideas. We're actually moving in a direction somehow. There's a first step of faith, and yeah, so that was pretty cool. And then probably a month after that, I heard some stuff from God that was like, okay, it's time to set things in stone. It's time to be okay with the direction I'm taking you. It's time to just establish this and move into it. And it wasn't 2 weeks after that Wendell and I started going, hey, there's this place called Linkway over in Dalton. I see they have office spaces. And we've been looking for an office space for about a year and a half, a little more for Wendell. And he's like, oh, actually, this is Dallas Steiner, who's like funding a lot of this stuff. I know him. I know his family. Maybe we can get in contact with someone. And we got in contact with his daughter, Delight, who's a real delight. And she is sort of directing this whole thing. And got us an office space completely free, which is like, what in the world? I mean, just after I was hearing, okay, time to set things in stone, then God's like, here's an office space, and you're right next to an art studio, and it's going to there are going to be a lot of large groups of people coming into this play lab. Like it's very communally engaging. It's very focused on people's development and teaching and learning and creativity. I'm like,
and younger people.
And I'm like, who in Wayne County would ever do something like this? That makes no sense. But it's just amazing how God lands you in the right place at the right time. You never know when or how. Maybe he'll tell you, but it's not very likely. And you just got to be okay to fly with it. That being said, yeah, that's where we've been so far, and now we're going to step into some stuff, and I'm going to show you I'm going to try and show you the culmination of a lot of things that I've been thinking about over the last year and a half, and some possibilities for what we can do with it. As big a task as that is, We're going to try, and God willing, it'll be successful. So we're just going to jump right in. I want to talk to you about, well, art, I guess. I want to start by telling you 3 stories. So the first story, this is a real anecdote, true story. Goes something like this. There was an older gentleman who he was an artist, and he hadn't done it. He taught art back in the day, and he hadn't done much with it as of recent. But then an opportunity arose for him to teach a class on art, sort of a community opportunity, and he thought about it and he prayed about it and he decided, okay, I think this is what I'm going to do. And his goal is just to use the gifts that God gave him to teach people what he knows, and God will probably do the rest. So he's like, okay, we're going to do this art class, and it's actually quite popular. People really like it. They come from pretty far away even to be in his class and learn his skill, learn how to be artists themselves, and he's not really thinking much of it. He's just doing what he knows. He's good at it, and so he does it. After one of his classes, he's wrapping up. He tells everyone to go home, and this young lady walks up to him, and she says, she has her painting there that she was working on during the class, and she says, "Can you tell me what I was doing wrong? And he says, can you critique my painting?" And he says, "Well, do you want a nice feel-good answer, or do you want an honest opinion?" And she stops and thinks for a moment, and she says, "No, I want the honest opinion." And so he says, "Okay, well, you know, the way that artists do, they're like, well, this didn't quite work because you did this all wrong, and this isn't really showing the way you should, and you should do it a little bit more like this." I'm not an artist, so I don't know how he would say this stuff, but he tells her all these things that aren't quite right with her painting, and then he says, "Well, and here's how you could fix this. You can try doing it this way instead, and it'll show up like this, and try changing this around just like this." He starts to tell her steps she can take to actually improve. And so he gives her his honest opinion, and then she thanks him and goes home. And he didn't think anything of it after that. The class went on for a few more months. After a while it dwindled, and the gentleman decided it served its purpose and stopped teaching. And he hadn't taught since, and 6 years go by. The only time that he's done art is really on his own accord. He's just done it because he loves it. Every now and then he'll display something somewhere, but very rarely. And well, he's at some event somewhere, and the young lady bumps into him again. And she says, "Do you remember me?" He says, "No." She says, "I took your class 6 years ago, and you gave me your honest opinion on how I should fix my art. I took that advice to heart, and it was really good advice. I incorporated it, and I became a lot more passionate about what I love, and I'm now running an art studio very close by, and we have several artists who display their art right there, and we're helping them grow and getting community involvement here. And if you hadn't encouraged me like you did, I probably wouldn't be in this spot that I'm in. So thank you." And isn't that such a cool story? It's very nice. Very, very feel-good story. The young woman is a woman named Taylin Baker. She lives in Mansfield. That's where her art studio is. And the old man is none other than Wendell Martin.
How did I guess that?
Yeah, I wondered. He held that art class at Gateway, and honestly, even my grandma, my grandma's art is phenomenal. She learned so much from him, and now she makes a lot of money doing art. It's amazing what came out of that. So, story number one. Story number two, this one isn't real in the same sense that it actually happened. This one's a dream. So it's real in a sense. But for this one, you can stop taking notes, put your pens down, and close your eyes. 'Cause this is a dream. Close your eyes.
Dream.
Don't fall asleep, but close your eyes.
It's tolerant.
I know. Full attention, right? So, this dream, it's you, and some of you have heard this already, just to preface, so you're going to know this off the bat probably, but, so this dream, it's you and two of your closest friends. You live in an apartment in a very busy city. You're not really sure why you're there. You're just sort of living life as it comes, and you're happy enough. But the three of you are getting by. You live just outside a very busy street, and on the other side of that busy street, there's another apartment complex. And you look across, every now and then you look across to the windows, and you see the one directly across from you. You recognize the guy inside. You're like, where do I know him? Wait a second. It's Robert Downey Jr. No joke, okay? Hey, it's a dream, all right? This stuff happens. Robert Downey Jr. lives across the street from you. And so you start paying a lot more attention to that window. And he actually doesn't look that good. In the dream, he's just maybe mentally not in a good spot. I'm not sure. And you can tell this from hundreds of feet away through windows even. In the dream, he hasn't worked in Hollywood for years and years. His career is starting to fall apart. Yeah, you don't really know what to make of that. Very strange case, but again, as dreams work, we skip a few months into the future all at once. And somehow or another, you and your two friends find yourselves invited over to Robert Downey Jr.'s apartment for dinner. So, you're not going to say no. You're going to say no to dinner with Tony Stark? Of course not. So you go over there and you find out he's in worse shape than you could have imagined. He looks kind of ratty himself, but his apartment is an absolute mess. And it's a real demonstration of what's going on inside his head. You've got his greeting, he's happy enough to see someone. It kind of seems like he hasn't seen anyone in a long time. So he's very excited that you're all here. But his greeting sort of pales in comparison to the greeting of his butler. His butler is not just any butler, it is a monkey butler. Not just any monkey butler, this is a skeleton monkey butler. Like Pirates of the Caribbean sort of thing. Very creepy looking. He comes and screams in your face right as you come through the door. So that sets you on edge for the rest of the visit. He's constantly screaming and jumping all over the place. As you come into the front room, you step on what you think is a rug. It's not a rug. As you come to find out, it looks a lot like a person. And it is a person. This is Robert Downey Jr.'s old agent that he talks a lot about, who got him many, many gigs. Seems like he's maybe dead, but he's not really dead. He's sort of half alive and just exists in the only way he possibly can on Robert Downey Jr.'s floor. At this point, you have serious shivers down your spine. You're afraid of where to step. You don't know what's going on, why he kept this poor man on the floor of his apartment. This guy has some serious issues. You go in and you politely sit down at the table, trying not to speak your mind, just keeping your manners, keeping those thoughts to yourself. He starts to make food for you, and as he's making food, you see in the cupboards there are things oozing out of them, and God knows what food he's making. You try not to think about it. You even see some beady eyes peering out at you. What is going on here? Guy hasn't cleaned his cupboards for years, probably. Well, he makes dinner, and you attempt to eat whatever it is. And for what feels like 6 hours, you sit and talk with him. trying your best to be cordial and thanking him for the meal, even though that's the last thing you want to do. You're starting to wonder why people like Robert Downey Jr. so much, because he doesn't seem like that great of a person even. Well, it's finally time to go. So you and your two friends start walking out the door. He thanks you all for coming, and you thank him again. And just as you're walking out the door, you stop and you look at him, and you just have this urge to say something to him. So you say, you know, Robert, you really seem like the kind of guy who needs some friends. It just seems like it would be good for you. It seems like you really flourish when you have people around you to help you and comfort you and just be good friends. And, well, to be honest, Robert, you're not going to get friends if you have a screaming, banshee, skeletal monkey butler greeting people as they come into your apartment. You're not going to get friends if you feed them this, whatever you fed us. And honestly, you need to get rid of these people who aren't your friends. That agent is not going to get you any more jobs, let alone be your friend. And, well, you know, maybe there are some things you can do around here to change that and to be more inviting, because I think friends could do you some good. Anyway, take that for what it's worth. So then you leave, you and your friends, you thank him, and you say goodbye. And you're kind of thinking back on that conversation, wondering if you stepped out of your bounds or you said the wrong thing. You feel very uncomfortable about it, but you go back home and there's nothing else you can really do. So you go to your apartment, and again, days and days go by. Every now and then you peer back through your window, you look to see what's Mr. Downey Jr. up to now, and over time, you see he's cleaning out his cupboards one day. Another day you look and you don't see that skeleton monkey butler swinging all over the curtains anymore. And the longest time in between changes is when he finally gets rid of that husk of a human sitting on his floor. You're seeing all these little changes. Well, one evening you and your friends, as friends do, decide to go out to watch a movie, just to have some fun. And you're sitting through the half hour of commercials before the movie starts. And there's a commercial for a new blockbuster film. And the star of the film is Robert Downey Jr. Okay, open your eyes. That's story number 2.
Really switch that up on me.
I did, yeah. Yeah. Change the context from the original dream a little bit. That's a real dream that someone really had. As real as a dream can be. And I'll let you decide how real a dream can be.
We just read Daniel. What are you talking about?
It does.
It's almost
Speaking of which.
and it's a real struggle too, because Robert Downey Jr. kind of actually did that to some extent.
I had no idea.
Not like as specific as that, but like, yeah, he was a criminal.
Yeah,
And then
Wow.
I think
he was an alcoholic
Yeah.
and was
No way.
addicted to drugs
Yeah.
and stuff
He was
like
like-
that.
I didn't know
This
any
was
of
like
that.
all before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Before like Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before his acting career, essentially, yeah.
Interesting. Well, so speaking of which, story number 3. See if you can find similarities. Once upon a time there was a king. This king was ruthless. He was very powerful. In fact, he had the most powerful kingdom on the face of the planet in his day. The king was self-centered and arrogant. Whatever he wanted was the best thing in the world. If he didn't get it, people died. That's how it worked for him. So he conquered a kingdom, and he got what he wanted, and people died, because sometimes that's how tyranny works.
Sometimes.
Most of the time, that's how tyranny works. So he's sitting atop this kingdom, and he says, well, there are a lot of wise people in this kingdom. I'm going to elect a few of them, put my advisor in charge of finding several young men from this kingdom who are well-abled and have great knowledge and ability to learn and are very wise. And I will train them up for a time, and then they will be advisors to me. So he sends out his right-hand man and finds these young men, and they prove to be quite something. They really stand out from the crowd. They're really unique, and they make the king see things that he doesn't normally see, which is interesting for a narcissist. They don't usually recognize that right away, but over time the king starts to realize, oh, these guys are pretty good to have around. So fast forward a little bit. One night in cold sweat, the king has a dream, a nightmare. It freaks him out. He can't even really understand why it freaks him out. And so he needs help. He needs all his wise men and magistrates and advisors to come in and help him understand the dream. He invites them all in and he says, I need you to interpret this dream. And so tell me, what's the interpretation of the dream? And they're like, okay, you're great and stuff, but no one knows what this dream means. I'm sorry, no one would ever, the wisest people on the earth would never understand what this dream is all about. So he's like, oh, okay, fine, I don't get what I want. I'm gonna chop all your heads off if you can't interpret it. And they're like, well, we just told you what we think. You're asking too much of us. And he's like, all right, well, I'll give you a running start, go on. Sends his executioner after all the wise men, all the advisors in the kingdom. Well, the executioner comes to the one young man who was recently appointed. Let's call him Dan.
Dan boy?
Danny boy. So Dan sees a large axe coming towards him, and Dan says, whoa, hold on. What's the story here, pal? The guy says, oh, didn't you hear? The king said to kill all his advisors because they can't interpret his dream. And Dan was like, whoa, hold on. No one told me. Give me a whack at it. Take me to the king. I can interpret the dream. And so the executioner did so. And the king says to Dan, so you can interpret my dream? And Dan says, I can't. But my God can. I will show you not just the interpretation of the dream, but the dream itself. This is the dream you had, O king. You saw a great statue was built, and its head was of gold, its arms and chest were of silver, thank you, silver. Its stomach was made of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet of iron and clay. And everyone wondered at the statue. Well, then a great rock was formed, not of this earth, and it came down upon the statue and destroyed it. The statue was turned to dust in a moment.
The stone filled the whole earth.
And the stone filled the whole earth. The stone became established forever. And he says, this statue represents the kingdoms of the world. And yours was the greatest of all these kingdoms. You were the head of gold. But the kingdoms of this earth are no match for the kingdom of heaven. There will come a kingdom of God that will be established far greater, far beyond any kingdoms of the world. So be wary, O king, that you don't put your trust in gold, that you don't put your trust in the kingdom of this world. That's the interpretation of the dream. And the king is amazed. He says to Dan, how in the world did you do that? And Daniel tells him again, this is my God. I didn't do this, but God told me. And so the king is amazed. He says, everyone in my kingdom will uphold this God. And they will, and you, Daniel, you will be lifted to a high place in the kingdom. He's made basically second in command. And a lot happens from there. The story goes on, but we'll leave it there for now. And that's story number 3. Can anyone tell me what is similar about these three stories?
The main character is taking feedback and making positive changes.
Taking feedback, positive changes. Okay.
I would say there's something significant about all of the little things, like with the first story, like all the little things he told her to change and like being honest about it, and like, I don't know how to say that. Like all the little things, if you change, like one at a time, they may not seem very big, or like if the king would have killed Daniel, that may have been a small part, but it actually, like, Daniel had a huge impact, or Mr.
Right.
Dan.
Right.
So I don't know,
Dan
there's
the man.
something significant about the small parts playing a huge role.
If the student had said, actually, don't give me honest feedback, I want, I want you to comment.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
All the people are men.
All the main characters are men?
The
That's like the
character, the
dream.
first one I figured
Was a woman.
was the student.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the
Or
dream
one,
was
I pictured.
first person, so.
Or
The dream was in first person.
So,
Oh,
I think
why
you
not?
misheard that.
So for you, it was
So
a woman.
you
Okay.
will-
Okay.
Okay, so, um,
Whoa.
there was something unknown and interesting that, like, and maybe because I've already heard the dream, anyways, so I hope we're not jumping onto something, but, there's something like that God gave that man did not know. So like
Mm.
in the dream, it was like God gave Daniel the dream that man did not know. God, anyways, same as like Wendell's story. It's like he just did something that like God like had plans for that he didn't know.
Right.
And then in the dream too, it's like that little word of like, hey, maybe we should clean up. Was something that God knew that like
Right.
he did not know.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So, a divine impartation plays a part. The simple practical steps into an adaptation, all that kind of stuff. So, the word that I have for all of that is the word transformation. Everybody say transformation.
Transformation.
Very good. Not transportation. It'd be easy to mix up. So, transformation. All these characters are going through a period, and however long, maybe 6 years, maybe an instant, where they're gradually becoming a new thing, a new person. They're seeking a new ability, learning something they didn't know before, and they step into a new identity, really. Hopefully to become a better person, better at something. So, I need, let me see, this is going to involve the whiteboard now. I need somebody who is really bad at drawing with dry erase markers. Right up in the top left corner, try and take up about half the board. Write the word transformation. Very good. Very good. There it is.
Sorry.
Way better than I could do.
Oh.
Way better than I could do. Okay, so do you think you've ever written the word transformation on a whiteboard?
No.
Okay. Who is really good at writing on a whiteboard with dry erase markers?
Schwani, corporate America.
Yeah.
Like artsy.
Right, I mean, I
Arts,
guess
okay.
that would probably.
Corporate America.
Katie Morgan, how are you? No. All right, Katie, you're up.
Katie.
Oh, Hannah, stay up here.
Oh.
You can stand somewhere over here. Yep. All right. Katie, take the bottom half of the whiteboard there. Write the word transformation. Take your time with it.
Like the bottom.
Bottom half. So just like this is her sheet. This is your sheet. Write it about the same size.
Is there any, like, do you just want me to write it how I normally would, or do you?
Yeah, make it nice. We have transformation up here by Hannah and transformation down here by Katie. Hannah just said to Katie, your handwriting looks very nice.
Mhm.
So, Katie, look Hannah in the eye and tell her, Hannah, go ahead.
Hannah,
Your handwriting
your handwriting
sucks. No, go ahead. This is an exception.
sucks.
You've never done this before,
You've never done this before.
and I don't know why you would do it again.
I don't know why you would do it again.
You're not any good at it.
You're not any good at it.
Your lines are too thin.
Your lines are too thin.
Your R's they look like imposter R's.
Your R's sus.
I'm glad you thought of it. I thought of it.
Okay, so now we're gonna leave you two alone for a minute, working together. Now, you're gonna keep writing the word transformation, okay? Hannah, you're gonna write it right here. Katie, you're gonna write yours right next to it.
Okay.
As she writes one, you're gonna say, okay, here's something you could do better.
Okay.
And Hannah's gonna try it better.
Okay.
Try and fit 10 of them on here.
Like write the whole word
wait,
or
so we
just
have
a
to show
letter?
a progression?
The whole word. Yes. Show your progression
So wait,
down
should
the
we
down the
start
board.
normal?
Yeah, just start normal. She's gonna do it again, and you're gonna tell her what is going on. What can you see that could use a little change?
Okay, so
Which one is it?
what I usually do is I try and use the thick part of the marker.
So, are there any thoughts on that initial? Well, I was putting words in Katie's mouth.
Yes.
What would you say about that critique that she was given?
It is unhelpful.
It's unhelpful. Okay.
Wait, do you
There's no like encouragement for improvement. It was just like shut down.
No encouragement.
No more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Schwan, any words?
Just, yeah, it wasn't,
I'll give you things to.
just like I said, there wasn't any suggestions, there wasn't any path forward. It was a put down. Or
No
it wasn't
path forward.
Yeah, it was,
Judah.
yeah.
Any words about it? How was her critique?
It wasn't done with respect.
Wasn't done with respect. That's good. Yeah. So
Like I use this.
this is something that I'm calling sort of a personal critique versus a universal critique.
Universal critique.
Universal. They're still going. They'll keep going here. So.
It's supposed to be like a pipe.
This is what Katie's doing right now. Is called a personal critique. So she's seeing specifically. She's looking specifically at what Hannah's doing,
Like that.
and comparing it to her skill that she's built up over the years, and saying, okay, well, this is something that I do that doesn't match what you've done. Here, why don't you try this? That's very personal. It's looking at specifically what Hannah did that could be changed into something else, right? So that's very personal. The real problem with the first critique, the god-awful critique that she gave, was it was way too universal. It was just, you're bad. And how's that supposed to be interpreted? What can you do with you're bad?
Just commit.
Pretty much nothing.
Keep being bad.
Keep being bad. Thing is, if you say something is bad, what does that require? Well, it necessarily implies that there is something that's good. Okay. That is the universal. What is good? What are you striving for? What are you aiming to become?
Let's just do that.
In this case, Katie is representing a little more someone who has perfected. Again, there's a kind of universal word, is like this high value that we've aimed for. She has perfected this art style, and so this is what Hannah would strive to be. And look at this, you can already see, they've only done 4, and you can see how much improvement. Look at what has taken place. This is what we call transformation.
And also like
Transformation.
that I didn't
Yeah,
train people.
transform.
That also.
Yeah, so Katie does do this for a living.
Way to go. You're good at your job.
But now, so the universal, there is a desire and to mix up the personal and the universal. The personal is really, really useful when it comes to critiquing one-on-one. The universal is really, really useful when it comes to, hey everybody, this is what's good, right? So, because when you're on the universal level, you can't give specific critiques to people. Because let's say Hannah came up here and I told her, okay Hannah, write transformation with the dry erase marker. And she wrote it with a Sharpie. Well then the problem wouldn't be you can't write it very good. That might be a problem, but to address the problem of a Sharpie, you have to say you're using the wrong utensil. This is going to be permanent and you're going to forever be looking at the writing that you didn't like. Okay, go sit down.
This is being recorded.
Yeah.
I
You notice the
thought you
camera.
turned it off.
You are now the backup dancer.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Our
I
workout
forgot.
video coming soon.
I'd rewind this whole thing.
We'll make it.
Sorry, Jaron, continue.
Yeah, so
We'll put it on the Go Forth TikTok somewhere.
Yes.
Then China will really be out.
I'm so-
Oh.
We'll cut this later. I'm so sorry, Jerry.
you're fine. You're
This is
fine.
my concept.
So, likewise, let's say Hannah went up there. I told her to write transformation, and she writes it in Arabic.
Yeah, I didn't hear.
Yeah, well, the problem wouldn't be, no, look, your letters look all wrong. It would be, that's the wrong language. Okay, so if we're trying to critique her transformation in these incorrect ways, it's not going to work. And that's where universal, right, can be, you can't look at the universal and say, everyone needs to fix their letters. Because some people are writing transformation in English, some people are writing it in Arabic, as the analogy goes. But you can use those as a personal critique. And the universal should not be used as, or the personal should not be used universally, is what I'm saying. Another common problem in our society is that people get rid of the universal altogether. Because the universal is very, it can be very judgmental. It can be very harsh. It's like, this is, it's really critical to say some paintings are better than others. It's really critical of people with, like left-handed people like myself, who can't write on a dry erase board for anything, to say, some people should be writing on that and some people shouldn't. And that's easy to take offense to. Because what if I want to write on the board? I'm not going to be picked because that universal, whether I like it or not, is still there. And I mean, of course you're going to pick Katie to write fancy words before you'll pick me. If you've ever seen my handwriting, oh, it's bad. There's a reason this is typed. So, and I have a choice during that. I can say, okay, it's all against me. I'm never going to be good enough. So why do we have these arbitrary standards anyway? What am I doing here, like trying to make my way in a system that's broken already? I need to, just get rid of that judgment in my life so that I can be equal to everybody else. Or I can say, okay, there are actually some ways that I could improve my handwriting. And there is an ideal. There is the ideal that maybe I'm not living up to. Maybe I should improve so that I can get a little closer to that ideal. And the other thing about our 3 stories was that each of those 3 people had to make a choice. Talon and Robert Downey Jr. and Nebuchadnezzar. I never thought I would ever say those three names in one sentence together.
Putting Chad and Nebuchadnezzar.
Oh gosh. All three of those characters had to make a choice to listen to the critique and to aspire to the universal. But it was a personal critique that got them there. So that is how the transformative process works in art, in society, so many ways that it works this way. But very specifically, that is a personal journey, and it's an artistic journey. So this is why we've been talking about art so much, because art demonstrates transformation so beautifully. And we're going to get into that more tomorrow. But art is a great showcase of what the transformative spirit does in people, how it operates. That is to say, when art is done well, it does that. So when we're making art, our focus needs to be that transformative process. How are we bringing beauty through this? Who's being changed through this? Who's being changed for the better? On the audience side of things, if you're making a movie or a story, then on the character side of things, are your characters being transformed in a really human way? These are all things that good art needs to achieve. And these are things that should speak to artists. Just like Talon, right? She learned how to improve her art style based on a transformative critique, a personal unto the universal transformation. She embraced that and she incorporated it and became something more. That sort of stuff really speaks to artists. Artists are most of the time, not all artists, but I would say for the vast majority of artists, they're very aware of a certain aspect of themselves. The artistic aspect of themselves, or the emotional aspect of themselves a lot of times. So that sort of critique actually speaks very deeply to them. If you have an artist who doesn't really know what they're doing, and you give them one of these like personal critiques, like, hey, so this is how you could achieve the universal good in a better way, then they'll actually take that and consider it. Somebody who's really sucks at their art style, they'll take it and be like, oh, okay, really reflect on it. And hopefully come back changed. That's the hope. So I think that's a way in which we can really engage with art properly, because it's important to engage with art the right way. Like I was saying, if you engage with it with the personal and the universal flipped, you're going to be really dissatisfied, or you're going to be living in a fantasy land your entire life. And we want this to be real. We want to experience real things in our art, real things in our lives. So engaging with it properly is very crucial. That's what we're looking at here. So let me see. I want to ask each of you, because this applies in more broad ways than just art, what are some ways that you have engaged with transformation yourself? Maybe you've been a recipient of it. Maybe you have facilitated it yourself. Maybe you've done it in some of your art. I want to hear some of those stories. So I'll give you a minute to stew on it. Think of a good story. You can probably find one. It can be simple, it can be complex, doesn't matter. Just go for it.
Can you repeat what we're at the top?
Yeah. what are some ways that you have engaged in transformation?